commander, Lirelei Moon Whisper, stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the stars ahead through the massive viewing screen. Her long silver hair was pulled back in the traditional elven military style, and her pointed ears twitched slightly. As she listened to the reports from her officers, the ship moved through space, with 15 other vessels behind it. 3 heavy cruisers, and 12 destroyers, all filled with the finest elven warriors the Sylvan Confederation could offer these. Soldiers had never lost a battle, and Lirelei had never failed. A mission today would be no different. She was certain of this. Their target was a small human settlement on New Haven, a frontier world that barely registered on most star charts. The humans. There were miners and farmers. Nothing more. Intelligence reports said they had maybe 5,000 people, and no real defenses. It should be an easy conquest. Captain Nira Blackstone approached from the communications station. Her feathers were the deep black of her Corvini species, and her bird-like eyes reflected the bridge lights. Nira had served under Lirelei for 3 years, and was one of the few aliens the elven commander truly trusted. Admiral Zara Veltar wants confirmation when we reach the target zone, Nira said. Her reptilian features showed no emotion, as always. The Saurian admiral expected this mission to be completed within our. Slarely nodded. Tell her we will have control of the settlement before the day's cycle ends. These humans picked the wrong world to settle on. The elven fleet moved closer to New Haven. Lirelei could see the planet growing larger on the screen. It looked peaceful with blue oceans and green continents. A nice world that would serve the Confederation. Well, once the humans were removed, Lieutenant Kale approached with sensor readings. Commander, the settlement appears larger than our intelligence suggested. There are several mining installations, and what looks like a small spaceport. Lirelei barely glanced at the report. It did not matter if there were 5,000 humans or 10,000, the result would be the same. Her warriors were trained from childhood to fight. Her ships carried weapons that could destroy entire cities. Her tactics had crushed every enemy the Confederation had faced. Prepare for planetary assault. She ordered all ships move to attack formation. The elven fleet arranged itself in the traditional battle pattern, with the heavy cruisers forming a triangle and the destroyers spreading out to cover any escape routes. It was a formation that had worked for centuries against every enemy they had encountered. As they moved into the planet's gravity well, something felt wrong too. Lirelei, the settlement below was quiet, too quiet. There were no distress signals, no desperate communications, no signs of panic. She had seen many worlds surrender before battle even began, but this felt different. Sensors are picking up some unusual readings. Lieutenant Kale reported multiple small objects in orbit around the planet. They appear to be asteroid. Space is full of rocks. Lirelei replied. Begin the bombardment. Target the main settlement first. Fleet opened fire with their plasma cannons, sending brilliant streams of energy toward the planet's surface. The weapons could level mountains and boil oceans. Nothing on that world could survive what was coming. Then everything changed. The asteroids Lieutenant Kale had detected suddenly came alive. Hidden engines activated, and they began moving toward the elven ships. What Lirelei had thought were simple rocks were actually disguised weapons platforms. Each one carried enough explosives to destroy a destroyer. Jake Miller watched from his command center, deep inside the main settlement. As his trap sprung perfectly, he had spent weeks preparing for this moment, studying elven battle tactics and placing his defenses exactly where they would do the most damage. The first asteroid struck the leftmost elven cruiser. The explosion was so massive it lit up the entire system for several seconds. When the light faded, the mighty warship was nothing but scattered metal floating in space. More asteroids slammed into the elven formation. Each impact sent shockwaves through their neat battle lines. Destroyers tried to change course, but found themselves flying into minefields that Jake had placed using modified mining equipment. Lirelei gripped her command chair as her ship shook from nearby explosions. This was impossible. Humans were supposed to be weak, supposed to be easy prey. They built farms and factories, not military installations, capable of destroying Elven fleets. Return. Fire, she shouted. All ships, target those asteroid weapons, but there was nothing to target the asteroids. Were one-time weapons that destroyed themselves when they hit their targets. The mines were too small for the heavy plasma cannons to lock onto. Effectively, the Elven fleet found itself fighting shadows. More explosions rocked the formation as Jake activated the second phase of his plan. Hidden among the debris of destroyed Elven ships were tiny drones. Each one carried a single powerful charge, and they moved like insects. Swarming over the remaining vessels, the drones found weak points in the Elven armor and detonated precisely where they would cause the most damage. Engine rooms, command bridges, weapon systems all became targets for the mechanical swarm. Lirelei watched in horror as her perfect fleet fell apart around her. The destroyers were dying one by one, and her remaining cruisers were badly damaged. Her warriors, the pride of the Confederation, were helpless against an enemy they could not see or fight. Emergency power. Only Captain Nero reported the engines are offline and weapons are down to 30%. How long did this take? Lirelei asked, though she already knew the answer. 90 seconds. Nero replied, 90 seconds to destroy a fleet that had conquered worlds. 90 seconds to end a military career that had lasted decades. 90 seconds to shatter everything Lirelei thought she knew about warfare. New voice came over the communications system, calm and human. This is Jake Miller, commander of New Haven Defense Forces. I am requesting your surrender. Lirelei felt something she had never experienced before in her long military career, complete and total defeat. But along with the shame and anger came something else. Entirely curiosity about the human who had just accomplished the impossible. Jake Miller, she repeated the name softly. Who are youth view screen activated, showing a human male with short brown hair and simple clothing. He did not look like a great military leader. He looked like an ordinary person, someone who might work in the mines or on the farms. I am someone who believes every being has the right to choose their own path, Jake said. His voice was steady and showed no hint of celebration despite his victory. Your fleet is destroyed, but your lives do not have to be. Will you surrender? Looked around her ruined bridge, at her injured crew, at the smoking remains of her proud warships. Through the view screen, she could see the debris field that had once been 15 of the finest vessels in the galaxy. She had two choices: die fighting a battle she could not win, or surrender to a human who had just taught her that everything she knew about war was wrong. Commander Lirelei, Moonwhisper of the Sylvan Confederation, Third Fleet surrenders. She said the words, feeling strange in her mouth. Jake nodded. I will be coming aboard to discuss terms. My ship will dock with yours in 10 minutes. As the communication ended, Lirelei found herself thinking about those 90 seconds. How had one human done what entire alien civilizations had failed to accomplish? How had someone who looked so ordinary created such extraordinary destruction? She did not know it yet, but those questions would change her life forever. 3 months had passed since the disaster at New Haven, and Lirelei Moonwhisper sat in a small office on the Confederation military station, orbiting Proxima 7. The room was barely large enough for a desk and chair, a far cry from the spacious command bridge she had once called home. The court-martial had been swift and brutal. Her superior officers had stripped her of her fleet command, but allowed her to keep her rank. The official records stated that she had encountered an unexpected human military installation and had been forced to retreat with heavy losses. The truth was worse. She had been completely destroyed by one human using mining equipment in asteroids. Now, she worked in intelligence analysis, a job that involved reading reports and filing data. It was boring work meant to keep her busy, while the Confederation decided what to do with a failed commander. But Lirelei had other plans. She used her security clearance to access every file she could find about the human called Jake Miller. The official records were thin, but what she found made her both angry and fascinated. Jake Miller had been born on Earth and served in their defense force for 12 years. He specialized in something humans called asymmetric warfare, which seemed to mean using small forces to defeat much larger ones. After leaving military service, he had become a freelance consultant helping smaller species defend themselves. Dr. Maya Thornfield entered the office carrying a cup of coffee and looking tired. The human scientist had been assigned to work with the Confederation as part of a cultural exchange program. She was one of the few humans Lirelei had regular contact with. You are reading about him again, Maya said, sitting down. Across from the desk, Jake Miller interests me from a tactical perspective, Lirelei replied, not looking up from her screen. Maya laughed. You have been studying him for months, Lirelei. This goes beyond tactical interest. Lirelei finally looked at the human woman. Maya had brown hair and wore simple clothes, but her eyes showed intelligence that reminded Lirelei of Jake. Tell me about human military thinking, she said. Maya raised an eyebrow. That is a very broad question. The human who defeated my fleet used methods I do not understand. How do humans fight? Wars? Maya leaned back in her chair. Humans have fought each other for thousands of years. We learned early that the bigger army does not always win. Sometimes the smaller force can use speed, or surprise, or better planning to overcome superior numbers. This asymmetric warfare, Maya nodded. Jake Miller is considered one of the best at it. He studies his enemy, finds their weaknesses, and turns their own strength against them. Lirelei had been thinking about this for months. The elven fleet had been strong, but that strength had become a weakness. Jake had used their size and formation against them, making their heavy weapons useless and their numbers meaningless. Where is he now? Lirelei asked. Maya looked uncomfortable. I should not tell you that too. Are not telling me. As a Confederation officer, you are helping me understand human tactics for academic purposes. Maya smiled slightly. He moves around a lot. Last I heard, he was helping the Centauri colonies design planetary defenses. The hegemony has been threatening them. The hegemony was another aggressive empire, like the Confederation. They conquered smaller worlds and enslaved the populations. If Jake was helping the Centauri, that meant he was still fighting the same kind of battles. Admiral Zara Veltar entered the office without knocking. Her reptilian features showed no emotion, but Lirelei had learned to read the subtle signs. The way the Admiral held her head meant she was either angry or excited. Commander Moonwhisper, you have a new assignment, Zara said. Lirelei stood at attention. What are my orders? Admiral Leo will track down the human Jake Miller and either recruit him to our cause or eliminate him before he can cause more damage. Lirelei felt her heart rate increase, but kept her expression neutral. Understood, Admiral. What resources will I have? A small ship and a crew of your choosing. This must be done quietly. We cannot afford to appear weak by sending a large force after one human. Maya had gone very still in her chair. Lirelei could see the woman was worried about what might happen to Jake, but Lirelei was not planning to hurt him. She wanted to understand him. I accept the mission, Lirelei said. Nodded. You leave tomorrow. Do not disappoint me again after. The Admiral left. Maya turned to Lirelei with concern in her eyes. What are you really planning? I am going to find Jake Miller and learn how he thinks, Lirelei replied. Then I will decide what to do. Lirelei spent the rest of the day preparing for her mission. She chose Captain Nira Blackstone as her second in command, along with a small team of loyal soldiers. They would take a fast scout ship and begin following Jake Miller's trail. Next morning, as their ship left the station, Lirelei found herself more excited than she had been in months. For the first time since New Haven, she had a purpose that mattered. She was going to hunt the most dangerous human in the galaxy. Their first stop was Centauri Prime, where Jake had supposedly been working. Lirelei spoke with local officials and learned that he had indeed helped design their planetary defenses. The system was elegant and used the planet's own geography against potential attackers. A mining administrator named Carl showed them some of the defensive installations. They were hidden in natural formations and powered by the planet's geothermal energy. Even if an attacking fleet destroyed the main cities, the defenses would continue operating. This is brilliant, Captain Nira said, as they toured a disguised missile battery. He has turned the entire planet into a weapon, but When they asked about Jake himself, the humans became evasive. He had left 2 weeks ago, and no one would say where he was going. Lirelei suspected they were protecting him. The trail led them to a dozen different worlds. Each one showed signs of Jake Miller's work, defensive systems that seemed impossible until you understood the thinking. Behind them, trade stations that could become fortresses, mining colonies that could disappear into asteroid fields when threatened everywhere. They went. Lirelei learned more about human tactical thinking. She began to understand that humans did not fight the way other species did. They were unpredictable, creative, and willing to use anything as a weapon. At each stop, they arrived just after Jake had left. It became frustrating but also fascinating. Lirelei felt like she was chasing a ghost, someone who was always one step ahead. On their 5th stop, a moon called Havens Rest, the local governor accidentally mentioned that Jake had spoken of visiting the Kepler Nebula. It was not much, but it was the first real lead they had found. The Kepler Nebula was a dangerous region filled with ion storms and navigation hazards. Most ships avoided it, but there was a trading station at its center, called Freeport. It was neutral territory, where anyone could do business without questions. If Jake Miller wanted to disappear, Freeport would be the perfect place. Lirelei ordered their ship to set course for the nebula. Finally, she might get the chance to meet her prey face to face. The thought both thrilled and terrified hers. They traveled through hyperspace toward the nebula. Lirelei found herself wondering what she would do when she found Jake Miller. The Confederation wanted her to recruit or eliminate him, but her own desires were more complex. She wanted to understand how he thought. She wanted to know how one human had accomplished what she had thought impossible. She wanted to test herself against someone who had already proven he could defeat her. Most of all, she wanted to see if the man matched the legenda. Ship dropped out of hyperspace. At the edge of the Kepler Nebula ahead of them, the swirling clouds of gas and debris hid the trading station. Somewhere in their depths, he is in there, Captain, Nira said, looking at the sensor readings. Yes, he is, Lirelei replied, and this time he will not escape. Freeport Station hung in the swirling gas clouds of the Kepler Nebula, like a metal flower blooming in an impossible garden. The trading post was massive, with dozens of docking arms extending from a central hub. Ships of every design and species could be seen attached to the structure. Lirelei stood in the docking bay of their scout ship, watching the busy traffic through the airlock window. Traders, merchants, smugglers, and refugees all came to Freeport because it was one of the few places in the galaxy where politics meant nothing. Captain Nira approached with a datapad showing the station layout. Freeport has 17 levels and over 50,000 permanent residents, she reported. Finding one human will not be easy. Jake Miller is not hiding, Lirelei said, adjusting her sidearm. He knows we are coming. How can you be certain? Nira asked. Because he has been ahead of us at every stop. He could have disappeared completely by now, but instead, he let us hear this is where he wants to meet. They left their ship with a small team of soldiers, dressed as traders. The plan was simple: locate Jake Miller and capture him quietly, without attracting attention from station security. The main concourse of Freeport was a maze of shops, restaurants, and gambling dens. Beings from hundreds of different species moved through the crowds, speaking dozens of languages. The air smelled of exotic foods and recycled atmosphere. Lirelei had studied the station plans during their journey. Jake would most likely be in one of the middle levels, where temporary residents stayed. She divided her team into pairs and sent them to search different sections. Nira started with level 7, which housed several cheap hotels, the first 3 establishments they checked had no record of any human matching Jake's description, but at the 4th hotel, the desk clerk, a nervous Voltan with too many eyes, became evasive when they asked about guest room for 17. The clerk finally admitted, after Nira showed him her weapon. Lirelei felt her pulse quicken as they approached the room. This was too easy. Jake Miller would not stay somewhere so obvious unless he wanted to be found. She signaled for Nira to cover the door while she prepared to enter. The room was empty, but it was not abandoned. On the bed lay a datapad with a message waiting for them. Lirelei picked it up and read the simple text. Welcome, Commander Moonwhisper. I have been expecting you. Nara cursed in her native language while checking the small bathroom. It is a trap. Lirel nodded, but she was smiling. This was exactly what she had hoped for. Jake Miller was not running from her. He was playing a game. The lights went out. Emergency. Power kicked in a few seconds later, bathing everything in red light. The station's public address system crackled to life with a calm human voice. Attention. Freeport Control, this is Jake Miller. There has been a minor technical malfunction in the power grid. I am working to resolve the issue. Please remain calm. Lirelli understood. Immediately, Jake had somehow gained access to the station's systems. He was using the entire structure as his weapon, just like he had used asteroids and mines at New Haven. Commander, we need to get back to the ship, Nara said. No, Lirelli replied. This is what I came for. They left the hotel room and moved through corridors filled with confused travelers and angry merchants. The emergency lighting made everything look different, turning familiar spaces into alien landscapes. Few minutes, something else would malfunction. Elevators would stop between floors, doors would lock or open. Randomly, air circulation would change, bringing strange smells from distant parts of the station. Jake was demonstrating his control, showing them that he could manipulate their environment at will. It should have been terrifying, but Lirelli found it fascinating. She began to think like Jake would think. The station had multiple levels and hundreds of hiding places, but he would want to stay mobile. He would use maintenance tunnels and service corridors to move around areas that most people never saw. Level 12. Lirelli said suddenly. What? Nira asked. He is on level 12 in the engineering section. He needs access to the main computer systems to control the station. They found a working elevator and descended to the engineering levels. The corridors here were narrower and filled with pipes and cables that hummed with energy. Few people came to this part of the station, except maintenance workers. As they moved deeper into the mechanical heart of Freeport, Lirelli noticed that the malfunctions were becoming more targeted. Doors would open for them at just the right moment, or close behind them to block pursuit. It was as if Jake was guiding their movement. You realize he is leading us exactly where he wants us to go? Nira said. Yes, Lirelli replied, but I want to see where they found him. In the main computer core, a massive room filled with processing units and data storage devices. Jake Miller sat at a control terminal with his back to the door. His fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced ease. Hello, Commander Moonwhisper, he said without turning around. I was wondering when you would arrow. Lirelli drew her weapon, but did not aim it at him. You have been expecting me for weeks, he replied, finally turning to face her. I have to admit your persistence is impressive. Most people would have given up after the third or fourth world. Jake Miller looked exactly as he had during their surrender at New Haven. Ordinary human features, simple clothing, nothing that suggested the tactical genius she had been chasing. He could have been any trader or worker on the station. You destroyed my fleet, Lirelli said. I defended my people, Jake replied. There is a difference. My orders are to recruit you or eliminate you. And what do you want to? Lirelli hesitated. The honest answer was that she wanted to understand him. She wanted to know how his mind worked and why he had chosen to help small worlds defend themselves against larger powers. I want to know why you do this, she said. Finally, Jake smiled and stood up from the terminal. You mean why do I help people fight against empires like yours? Yes, because everyone deserves the right to choose their own path, he said. Your confederation takes that choice away. When you conquer a world, you decide how those people will live, what they will believe, how they will raise their children. My people bring order and civilization. People bring slavery with better public relations. Lirelli felt anger, flare, but also recognized truth in his words. She had conquered dozens of worlds for the Confederation and had never asked if the people there wanted to be conquered. The station shuddered around them, and Jake glanced at his terminal. Your backup is arriving, he said. 2 Confederation destroyers just dropped out of hyperspace. Admiral Zara had not trusted her to complete the mission alone. Lirelli realized she should have expected this. You could have killed me when I entered this room, she said. Yes, you could escape right now. Yes, then why are you still here? Because I am curious about you, Jake said. You have been chasing me for months, using resources and taking risks that go far beyond your mission parameters. While Raleigh found herself unable to answer the question, cut too close to thoughts she had been avoiding. The truth was that Jake Miller had become an obsession. She thought about him constantly, studied his methods, dreamed about their conversations at New Haven. The sound of docking clamps echoed through the station, followed by the heavy footsteps of military boots. Admiral Zara had arrived with soldiers. Jake moved toward a maintenance hatch that would lead to the service tunnels, but instead of escaping he stopped and looked back at Lirale. "Come with me," he said. Want to understand how I think the best way to learn is to see the galaxy from my perspective." Lily heard her name being called over the station communication system. Admiral Zara was ordering her to report immediately. But Jake Miller was offering her something more valuable than orders or duty. He was offering her truth without fully understanding why she was doing it. Lirale followed Jake into the maintenance tunnel. The hatch sealed behind them, just as Confederation soldiers entered the computer core. They moved through narrow passages filled with pipes and cables, following routes that Jake seemed to know perfectly where. "Are we going?" Lirale asked. "Away from here," he replied. "Then if you still want answers, I will give them to you." As they climbed through the dark tunnels beneath Freeport Station, Lirale realized that she had made a choice that would change everything. She was no longer hunting Jake Miller. She was running away with him. The stolen courier ship moved through hyperspace, while Lirale Moonwhisper tried to understand what her life had become in the past week. She sat in the small galley across from Jake Miller, eating packaged food and discussing military tactics. Like they were old friends instead of former enemies. Jake had helped her escape from Freeport, using maintenance tunnels that led to a hidden docking bay where he had prepared the fast courier ship for exactly this situation. Captain Nira Blackstone had chosen to come with them, bringing 3 loyal Corvani pilots who valued personal honor over government orders. Now they were all fugitives from the Sylvan Confederation. "The ship is fast, but not very comfortable," Jake said, looking at his meal with obvious distaste. "These emergency rations taste like recycled plastic." "Hugh could have escaped alone," Lirale pointed out, "instead of helping May. Told you I was curious about your motivations. Besides, I need allies for what comes next." "What comes next?" Lirale asked. Jake activated a holographic display showing star charts and fleet movements. "Your Admiral Zara has been using your pursuit of me as cover for a much larger operation. Take a look at these patterns." Lirale studied the data and felt her blood turn cold. Confederation fleets were moving into position around several key systems. The formations looked like preparation for a massive assault, but the target was not immediately obvious. Maya Thornfield contacted us yesterday," Jake continued. "She has been monitoring Confederation communications from inside their command structure. What she found is disturbing. The hologram changed to show intercept communications and classified planning documents. Maya had risked everything to steal this information, and what it revealed made Lirale feel sicker." Jake said simply, "They are planning to attack Earth." The assault plan was massive and sophisticated. Admiral Zara had studied every battle Jake had ever fought, analyzing his tactics and methods. The Confederation believed they understood human military thinking based on his unconventional approaches, but they were wrong. "Your people think humans only fight using asymmetric warfare," Jake explained. "They expect us to use mining equipment and hidden weapons and clever tricks. What they do not understand is that I use those methods because I am usually outnumbered and outgunned." "What happens when humans have equal numbers and proper weapons?" Lirale asked. Jake smiled grimly. "We are very good at direct warfare too. We have been fighting each other for thousands of years. Earth's defense fleets are not mining ships with improvised weapons. They are purpose-built warships, crewed by professional soldiers." The Confederation was making the same mistake that many enemies had made before. They were preparing to fight the last war instead of the current one. "Admiral Zara expects Earth to respond like the colonies I defended." Jake continued. "Hidden weapon surprise attacks using the environment against attackers. She has planned countermeasures for all of those tactics, but Earth will not fight that way. No. Earth will meet them head-on with everything they have, and when two professional militaries clash, the side with better information usually wins. Laral began to understand. That is why you are telling me this. You want Confederation tactical information. I want to prevent a war that will kill millions of people on both sides, Jake said. The Confederation fleet will lose, and lose badly. Earth's defenses are stronger than your intelligence suggests, but the casualties will be enormous, Captain. Nira entered the galley, looking troubled. We are receiving priority communications from Dr. Thornfield, she said. The timeline has been moved up. The attack on Earth begins in 6 days. 6 days was not much time to cross the galaxy and warn Earth's defense forces, but Jake had already been planning for this possibility. The courier ship was fast enough to reach Earth ahead of the Confederation fleet. If they pushed the engines to maximum, we need more than just a warning, Lirelei said. If Admiral Zara suspects that information has been leaked, she will change her plans. Earth needs to know the specific attack vectors and fleet composition. Psi can provide that information, Jake replied, but Earth Command will not trust intelligence from a single source. They will want confirmation. Lee thought about her years of service to the Confederation, about the worlds she had conquered, and the people she had enslaved. Admiral Zara was planning to attack Earth based on false assumptions about human capabilities. The resulting battle would be a Zakorshi made her decision. I will provide confirmation, she said. I will testify to Earth's Defense Command about Confederation capabilities and tactics. Jake looked surprised. You would betray your own people. My people are planning to attack innocent civilians based on lies and stupidity, Lirelei replied. That is not honor, it is madness. The next few days passed in a blur of hyperspace jumps and planning sessions. Lirelei shared everything she knew about Confederation, military doctrine, fleet organization, and command structure. Jake contributed his knowledge of Earth's defensive capabilities and the likely strategic thinking of human commanders. Captain Nira proved invaluable in understanding how different alien species might react to the coming battle. Many worlds had treaties with both Earth and the Confederation. A war between them could spread across the entire galaxy. Dr. Maya Thornfield sent regular updates about the Confederation fleet's movements. Admiral Zara was gathering ships from across their territory, assembling a force large enough to overwhelm what she believed were Earth's limited defenses. The plan called for a direct assault on Earth's orbital installations, followed by bombardment of major cities until the human government surrendered. It was designed to be quick and decisive, based on the assumption that humans could not mount effective resistance against conventional tactics. Maya's final message before communications went dark was chilling. Admiral Zara had discovered her activities. Dr. Maya Thornfield was now a prisoner, facing execution for treason against the Confederation. When they finally reached Earth's outer sensor perimeter, Lirelei felt nervous for the first time in years. Earth was the human homeworld, the place where Jake Miller's species had originated. She expected to see massive defense stations and fleets of warships. Instead, she saw what looked like a normal star system with regular traffic and civilian installations. Earth's defenses were well hidden, just as Jake had promised. A patrol ship intercepted them, broadcasting standard challenge codes. Jake responded with identification protocols that marked him as a former Earth Defense Force officer requesting emergency audience with Fleet Command. The response came quickly. Jake Miller, you are ordered to report to Earth Defense Headquarters immediately. A military escort will guide your ship. As they approached Earth itself, Lirelei saw why the Confederation intelligence had underestimated human defenses. What looked like civilian space stations and commercial platforms were actually military installations disguised as normal infrastructure. The planet itself was beautiful, with blue oceans and white clouds covering continents that showed the lights of vast cities. It was hard to believe that in 3 days this peaceful world would be under attack by one of the largest fleets ever. Assembled Earth Defense Headquarters was hidden inside what appeared to be an asteroid mining facility in the outer system. Jake docked their ship and led them through corridors filled with human military personnel, who stared at Lirelei with obvious suspicion. Admiral Lisa Chen met them in a secure briefing room. She was a stern woman with gray hair and the bearing of someone who had commanded fleets in battle. Her first words were direct and challenging. Jake Miller, you disappeared from official records 5 years ago, and now you return with a Confederation officer, claiming to have intelligence about an impending attack. Why should we trust either of you? Because Admiral Lirelei replied, stepping forward. The attack begins in 72 hours, and your current defensive plans will result in the deaths of millions of people. Admiral Chen studied Lirelei carefully. Then she activated a holographic display and said, show me everything you know for the next 8 hours. Lirelei and Jake shared everything they had learned about the Confederation's plans. Earth's defense commanders listened, asked hard questions, and gradually accepted that the threat was real. When the briefing ended, Admiral Chen looked tired, but determined. We have 3 days to prepare for the largest battle in Earth's history, she said. I hope you are both ready to see this through to the And Laurel thought about her former life as a Confederation officer, about the oath she had sworn to serve Admiral Zara, and the empire she had believed was bringing order to the galaxy. That life was over now. She had a new purpose, helping to defend Earth against the very forces she had once commanded. The irony was not lost on Harry. I'm ready, she said, and this time, I intend to win. The Confederation fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Like a swarm of metal predators, Admiral Zara Veltar stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the sensor displays show hundreds of ships arranging themselves in perfect battle formation: 300 heavy cruisers, 800 destroyers, and 50 dreadnoughts, the largest military force the Confederation had ever assembled. It should have been enough to conquer any world in the galaxy. Admiral Zara felt confident as she studied the tactical displays. Earth's defenses appeared exactly as intelligence had predicted: scattered civilian installations, a few military patrol ships, and the kind of improvised defensive networks that humans seemed to favor. The reptilian admiral opened a communication channel to her fleet commanders. This will be finished quickly, she announced. Attack Formation 7, proceed to orbital bombardment positions. But, as the Confederation ships moved deeper into the solar system, something unexpected happened. The civilian installations began to change. Mining platforms revealed hidden weapon batteries. Commercial space stations deployed fighter squadrons. What had looked like merchant traffic suddenly became military escorts. Admiral Zara realized, with growing alarm, that Earth's defenses had been disguised. She was not attacking a poorly defended colony world. She was engaging a fortress system that had been prepared for exactly this kind of Miller sat in Earth Defense Headquarters, watching the battle unfold on massive tactical displays around him. Admiral Lisa Chen stood nearby, coordinating the defense, while Lirelei provided real-time intelligence about Confederation tactics and capabilities. The first phase is going exactly as planned, Jake said. Phase 1: make them commit to the attack before they realize what they are really facing on. The display's Earth's hidden defenses revealed themselves in careful stages. Each Confederation advance was met by resistance that seemed just strong enough to slow them down but not stop them. Admiral Zara was being drawn deeper into the system, exactly as Jake had hoped. Lirelei watched her former colleagues fly into the trap and felt conflicted emotions. These were people she had served with, officers she had respected, soldiers who trusted their commanders to lead them to victory. Now they were being systematically destroyed by tactics she had helped plan. The Confederation fleet is splitting up, Admiral Chen reported. They are trying to overwhelm multiple defensive positions at once. That is Admiral Zara's favorite tactic, Lirelei said. Hit everywhere at once and find the weak points. But it will not work. Here, Captain. Nira Blackstone entered the command center with updated reports from her pilots. Her Corvani squadron had joined Earth's defense forces and were proving devastating against Confederation fighters. The enemy is becoming confused, she reported. Their formation discipline is breaking down. Jake nodded. The second phase was beginning. The Confederation had expected to fight improvised human defenses Instead, they were facing professional military coordination, combined with tactical innovations. They had never encountered Admiral Zara watched her carefully planned assault fall apart around her. The humans were not fighting the way they were supposed to fight. Instead of clever traps and hidden weapons, they were using massive firepower and professional tactics that outmatched even elite Confederation forces, whereas the humans seemed to know exactly how Confederation forces would respond to every situation. Their countermeasures were perfectly timed, as if someone had provided them with detailed intelligence about Confederation doctrine communication from the surface. Admiral and aide, reported Admiral Chen, is requesting your surrender, Admiral. Zara felt rage building inside her scaled chest. The humans were offering her the same choice she had given to countless other worlds. Surrender or be destroyed. It was humiliating beyond endurance. Open a channel to all ships, she ordered. Prepare for final assault. We will break their defenses even if it costs us everything. But even as she gave the order, Admiral Zara knew it was hopeless. Her fleet had already lost half its ships, and the humans were still revealing new defensive capabilities. The battle was over even if she refused to admit it. On Earth's command ship, Admiral Chen made a difficult decision. The Confederation fleet was beaten, but Admiral Zara was preparing for a suicidal final attack that would kill thousands more people on both sides. Open a channel to the Confederation flagship, she ordered. Admiral Zara appeared on the communication screen, her reptilian features showing anger and desperation. Admiral Chen, I will not surrender to humans. You have already lost, Admiral Chen replied. Your fleet is destroyed, and your attack has failed. Continuing this battle will only result in more death. Admiral Zara looked around her ruined bridge at the smoking remains of her tactical displays. I have one ship left with enough firepower to destroy your orbital cities. Then use it, Admiral, Chen said calmly, but know that when you do, you will be committing genocide. Not achieving victory for the first time in the battle, Admiral Zara hesitated. She looked at Jake Miller standing beside Admiral Chen and recognized him as the human who had started this chain of events. You, Jake Miller, she said, this is your doing. Yes, Admiral Zara, Jake replied. I helped plan Earth's defense, just as I helped the colonies you attacked. This is what happens when you try to conquer people who refuse to be conquered. Admiral Zara made her choice. She could die fighting, or she could live with defeat. The choice seemed obvious, but military pride made it almost impossible to accept. Lerai appeared on the communication screen beside Jake and Admiral Chen. Admiral Zara, she said, I am offering myself as surety for an honorable surrender. You know my word is good. Admiral Zara stared at her former subordinate. Lirelei Moonwhisper had been one of the finest officers in the Confederation fleet. Now she stood with humans, defending the very people she had once been ordered to conquer. You are a traitor, Admiral Zara said. I am someone who learned the difference between honor and blind obedience. Lirelei replied, you can learn it too. The communication channel stayed open for long minutes, while Admiral Zara considered her options around her. The bridge crew waited for orders that would determine whether they lived or died. Finally, the reptilian admiral straightened her shoulders and spoke the words that ended the battle. The Confederation fleet surrenders. In the months that followed the failed attack on Earth, both Lirelei and Jake found their lives changed in ways they had never expected. Admiral Chen offered them positions in Earth's defense forces, but they chose a different path. Together with Dr. Maya Thornfield, who had been rescued from Confederation custody, they established an independent organization dedicated to helping smaller worlds defend themselves against aggressive expansion. The Corvani pilots, led by Captain Nira, became their primary military force there. First major success came when they helped the Centauri colonies negotiate a peace treaty with the hegemony. Using a combination of military pressure and diplomatic innovation, they prevented another war and established a model for peaceful conflict resolution. Lorraine found that working with Jake taught her new ways of thinking about military problems. Instead of conquest and domination, she learned to focus on protection and deterrence. It was more satisfying than any victory she had achieved. For the Confederation, Jake discovered that having a partner who understood both military strategy and alien cultures made his work more effective. Lerelay's knowledge of different species and their motivations helped him design defenses that were not just tactically sound, but politically sustainable. Dr. Maya became their scientific advisor, developing new technologies that made defensive systems more effective, while Captain Nira trained pilots from dozens of different species in combined tactics that emphasized cooperation over competition. One evening, as they sat in their headquarters on a small station in neutral space, Lirelay reflected on the strange journey that had brought them together. "Why destroyed your fleet?" Jake said, reading her thoughts, and "I spent months hunting you like an obsessed predator." Lirelay replied. Maya laughed from her workstation. "You both sound like you are describing the beginning of a romance instead of a military conflict. Perhaps there is not much difference," Captain Nira observed. "Love and war both require passion, dedication, and the willingness to risk everything for something you believe in." Lirelay looked at Jake and realized that the Corvani captain was right. Her obsession with understanding him had grown into something deeper, a partnership that challenged both of them to become better than they had ever imagined possible. The galaxy was still full of conflicts between large empires and small worlds, but now there was an alternative to conquest and submission. There were people willing to fight, not for territory or resources, but for the simple principle that every being deserved the right to choose their own path. It was not much, but it was a beginning, and sometimes Jake had taught her the smallest beginnings could shatter the mightiest armies if they were applied with enough intelligence, creativity, and determination. Outside their station, the stars shone with the same light that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, but for the first time in her life, Lirelay felt hopeful about what those civilizations might become.